Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Nnajike Marcel Ndubisi. My name is not important now, but my message is. I have just finished a powerful, thought provoking, and a spiritually empowered book titled The Predicaments of the Black Man, which is set to take the world by storm. The black leaders are called to be prime examples to help educate and empower the black man to be free. It looks at the accomplishments of Martin Luther King and his group in the United States and the inspirational rise of Nelson Mandela in Africa. It shows how they were able to inspire nations in the midst of their struggles and give us hope and power beyond measure. This book looks objectively at the black man's struggle and utmost survival from two different worlds, bringing to light the similarities of what the black race faces the world over. Phrases like being your brother's keeper, united we stand, divided we fall, for he who is for us will stand by us, and knowing that what affects one of us affects us all, are words of encouragement to spur us to action. This book is set to change the lives of the next generation positively. It raises the question what will become of the next generation, and that all hope is not lost per se. Believe me, friends, when I tell you that this book is a book that's going to spur people into action. It's a book that needs to be read by millions of people. So you need to remember it. It's called The Predicaments of the Black Man, and I'm the author of this book. It's a book that needs to be read by all people of all races, and most especially black people from all over the world. I'm going to read a few of the pages from the book. First of all, I dedicated the book, to God through the guidance of the Holy Spirit, who had helped me to write this book. The book starts by talking about a people as a whole. We are a people unique and instrument of God's work. We had an identity and a way of life. Our culture was rich and we were embedded in it. We trusted our own and lived our lives. A new wave arose, the white man intruded. They brought God to us as if we knew him not. Our minds were open but closed to the hidden. They exploited our people and showered them with gifts. They wined and dined until their minds were gone. They were deceived and lured, so they sold their own. Yet they loved themselves and took the money they got. Their lands were taken and their identity was ruined. But I say, how could you sell your own flesh and yet blame another? I know the power of words may be strong, but with the sweetness of the lips, it may be smooth as oil, but leads to death. Their lands were taken and they were forced to obey. The mission of God and the politics is brought. Changed Africa entirely. The white man to control and cultures divided. The black man was made to feel inferior. His cultural values and identity was ridiculed. His self-esteem was made low and he had to abide. His manpower and labor was exploited. He worked for another for pennies. Division was sowed. Tall or short, slim or plump, light skin or dark skin, flat nose or pointed nose. People looked at each other and found faults in themselves. The communal living was hampered, so segregation erupted. Lines were drawn, differentiation was made. Me against another, us against them. We were better off than we are, but how could that be said? Something not understood could not be better than what you're used to. Nevertheless, we have steadied our faith and bought into it. As time elapsed, our hopes and dreams were gone. Our families were separated, some never to be seen again. It was a scheme they used to stop us from reuniting. Our names were changed and new ones imposed. Home is where they had ease. I wonder if my own is thinking of me as well. We knew we had to make it work for us. You stay and work until you have a voice. Torture we endured, God had a voice. Where is the world? They don't seem to care. Our lives flashed before our eyes. Our hopes and dreams were shattered. Our fate was in another man's hands to deal with us as he pleases. But we refused our destiny to be tainted. We are the architects of our own misfortunes. For my brothers and sisters led me astray. Life should not be this way. For united we stand, divided we fall. In the midst of all that was said, we sent messages amongst ourselves. In secret to our brothers and sisters far and wide, we used every means we could find and tried to avoid being caught. The church was an instrument of force to unify and preach the solidarity of peace. Martin Luther King and his group arose. They very well stepped up to the plate and preached the essence of peace. They gave us the feeling of oneness and hope to stay alive. Rallies we organize, we need to be free. Freedom from what? We need an identity, we want to be recognized, to be allowed to vote and treated as humans. Politicians were touched, sides were taken, laws were imposed to justify victimization. Other laws were turned to give way to progress. The North took the lead, the South followed suit. Time shall tell, baby steps were taken. We are allowed to vote to at least have a voice, but not without a fight, because we earned that right. Our brothers and sisters were home fighting for their own survivals. With a new wave that rose, Africans began to gain independence. Independence from what? From the claws of the white man. We can now rule ourselves. There was excitement again. The second time should be twice the charm. My people are now on top. We formed our own government in Africa at large, selected our leaders in coups and in elections, and we had the power to control our fate. Our destiny was to rise to the top. Our lands were filled with natural resources, untapped diamond and oil, a continent flowing with abundance of wealth. But in the midst of all this abundance, the forces of evil arose. My brothers and sisters who became leaders decided to enrich themselves at the expense of the suffering of their own. They sold our resources for little or nothing and enriched themselves with billions of dollars. You would think they will invest in their own people, since they blamed the white man for injustice in the past. Times have changed for sure, for the white man is not in charge. So why do I feel pain and suffering? My own protected me not at all. Africans are treated like savages, like a beast of burden by their leaders. Surely our voice will be heard by the world to come to our aid, especially in these times of solitude. The white man took charge centuries before. Books were written on the ills that he did, but the black man came in and destroyed his own. Journalists were killed, imprisoned, or shot. Freedom of press shall not exist. Elections were rigged as a means to stay in power. Inflation arose as the economies of the nations collapsed. My brothers and sisters were now sold to slavery. Others were killed for the beliefs they have. Dictators arose amongst my people from within to protect and serve, but they stole from us. In Africa and the world at large, many looked in disbelief, but a new age is here to stay. Ruthless as they come, they showed no love for their own. They bought investments overseas and neglected their homelands for years. Their children wined and dined with the loyalties of the world. They live in mansions, but in foreign lands not their own. Since the new age arose, they refused the words of the wise. Their ears turned deaf to their brothers and sisters. They refused advice and only heard themselves. A new trend is here. People lived in hostility and found fault in themselves. War arose among the people from within. People started killing each other for land and for survival of existence. The same fate that bestowed our forefathers was now our own downfall. There was corruption in high places, so truth and honesty could not prevail. Some cried out to the West to come and take over. Others gave up and died because they could not bear the pain. People tried to get rich quick in every way that they can, and were praised for their deeds and for their deception as well. Some acclaimed they were skilled. Integrity and hard work was lost. Our continent is now a prison. Injustice prevails in all walks of our society. The voice of the people is not heard. In shame and slavery we raise our children. What will become of them, I may ask? Time shall tell, I presume. The face of evil now resides at home. I guess home is where the heart is. I am ashamed to call it my home because the news I hear is damaging. But within these horrific episodes, the face of God prevails. So I look beyond the continent and seek the love above. God is giving the leaders the time to change their course of action because His love is unconditional and for all. I ponder in my heart the ramifications of things to come. I hope for the day of peace, for the black man to be free. Then I set my eyes on the youths of tomorrow with the potential to set the stage right, to free their minds from oppression and grow in uniformity with their own. My brothers and sisters in Africa look to the Western world for their cultural trend in vogue. They listen to gospel, jazz, and hip-hop and learn breakdancing in videos. Africans heard about the Martin Luther King and the emergence of Michael Jackson and Air Jordan. They watched the Cosby Show and a different world that followed. They read about the Malcolm X of the world, to the blacks in politics and government, from the black churches and schools at large, to the new generation that was molded by it. A rite of passage that we have, a sense of uniqueness and purpose, for the appearance of Oprah Winfrey on talk show. Oprah, you really need to get with me. Anybody knows Oprah out there, I'm telling you, you need to read this. This is powerful. To the soothing words of Maya Angelou the poet. They looked at African Americans for inspiration because their nations in these troubled times had little to offer. But Nelson Mandela rose to bring pride back to the continent. After many years in jail he spent for fighting apartheid and discrimination to become the president of his nation. What an inspiration he was to help keep the black man's hope alive. Mr. Mandela, and anybody that knows Mandela, you tell him about the book The Predicaments of the Black Man, written by Nnajike, Marcel, Ndubisi, to help the black man's hope alive. The young black men grow with time and were well aware of their surroundings. With the ills of war and corruption, the manpower we had was gone to the Western world for greener pastures. They have to survive and care for their own, so they took their talent elsewhere, where they will be appreciated for their hard work and honesty, and work for what they are worth. Education is the fountain of life. Reaching out to others was the tools to use. To be your brothers and sisters' keeper. Do not wait for the government to do it. Our survival is critical, and only with the help of my own. I scream out to help to my own, so my archive will be heard from afar, for the world to see me as I am, and the afflictions of the pains I endured. Charity begins at home, I was told. My thoughts are now on my brothers and sisters. My eyes are now set on my brothers and sisters overseas for help. Surely they could come to my aid, since they live in a better world than I do. I have heard of their exploits overseas, the achievement and dreams that was made. What excitement it brings to my mind. But short-lived, I would say, for now, because even though I rejoice for them in my heart, I still want my own dreams to be true, until I discovered and learned that times have changed, that they know me not as I am. But how could that be said, since they are black as me and like me? I know centuries have passed and elapsed, and they have been away from home. I'm sure someone told them of their brothers and sisters at home. We traveled overseas to see for ourselves, to enjoy the dreams of a new world, but was surprised and dismayed because we saw that my own was distant from me. They have heard about us in the news. Their mindset have been molded by it, so they cannot relate to their own. We are looked down upon by them and ask questions about their home they should know. But one would think they ought to see it for themselves and have a better understanding of their own. Our leaders need to extend an invitation to our brothers and sisters overseas to try and an accord with them, to help them in understanding themselves. For the image they have as a screen, like a movie, shows a sneak peek of reality. The facts of life need to be known for the black man to rise from his struggles. Negative past continues to linger since no one seems to care. To reinforce or unite our own, representation is what we need. Our positive images are left untouched. Nothing good comes from Africa, some have said, for depicting images is what they are shown. Our religion, craft, music, and culture are undermined. We need to take the bull by the horn. For he who's for us will stand by us, and what is hidden will be known with time. So I focused my mind on our learning of all I've learned of ourselves. My brothers and sisters were no longer slaves, and they competed for jobs with others in all walks of life. We grew surely as individuals and conquered many a dream. Some moved out of the projects to the white neighborhoods they moved, and left their brothers and sisters by themselves to endure hardship on their own. Don't you ever forget the bridge that you passed through. My late grandmother's words of encouragement to me. Many lived in poverty beyond comprehension, and crime followed suit in our homes. My people lived in deplorable conditions, but yet better than what I've seen at home. We cannot be complete or whole until we take care of our young generation. Martin Luther King and his group will roll over their graves if they saw how we are living now. Where are the black leaders of today? Where are the black leaders of today? The black men or women of substance. The spirit of Martin Luther King has been lost, and yet we celebrate his day and follow not what he said. A lot of our young men and women are in jail for crimes they committed and punished for. Others are in jail for crimes they did not commit. Who will come to their aid? How can we repair the wrong that was done? I know the worst place to raise a child, an environment of poverty, hostility, violence, and stress. For where there is no hope, hopelessness prevails. You grab what you're given. Children learn what they live. It seems we've forgotten this fact with time. We undermine and kill each other for nothing. Newspapers and news talk about racial profiling, but black on black crime is less emphasized. It happens in every day of our lives. We see it at home and overseas. We brag about our achievements as individuals, but I need to know how we're living as black people. We need the spirit of Martin Luther King to be in our lives, to help bring our conflict to an end, to help elevate our